If you've been scrolling through endless forums, watching YouTubers compare every scanner on the market, and you still feel that not of doubt about which tool actually earns its price tag, this is the review that will cut through the noise. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last few weeks talking to shop owners, reading the handful of user comments that exist, and pulling apart the spec sheet to see how the Autel MaxiSYS Ultra EV really fits into a real-world garage. Let's start with the problem most of us face when the electric vehicle boom finally hits our doors. You have a handful of hybrid or pure EV models rolling in, but your old OBD-II scanner just shows a blank screen or a generic code that tells you nothing about the high-voltage system. Buying a generic scanner and hoping it will just work can end up in wasted time, angry customers, and a repair bill that never gets written. That's why the Ultra EV promises a whole new set of capabilities: high-voltage diagnostics, offline battery pack analysis, and factory-level ECU functions, all in a single tablet-sized unit. Who should actually consider this piece of hardware? If you run a shop that services at least a few EVs a week, think a dealership service department, a specialty EV repair garage, or even a mobile diagnostic service that wants to add EV capability. This is the kind of tool that moves you from "we can't touch the battery" to "we can read pack voltages, check cell balance, and even run motor torque repairs on site." It's also a solid choice for a serious DIY enthusiast who has the safety gear, knowledge of high-voltage protocols, and the desire to troubleshoot a home-charged EV without constantly calling a dealer. On the flip side, if you're a hobbyist who only occasionally plugs in a plug-in hybrid for fun, or a shop that still does the majority of its work on gasoline-powered cars, the Ultra EV is probably overkill. The price point sits well above a typical OBD-II reader, and the value comes from features you'll rarely use if EVs aren't a regular part of your workflow. Now let's talk about what the scanner actually does in the shop. The headline feature is the 2026 electron-volts version of Autel's Ultra platform, which includes a dedicated high-voltage diagnostic module. In practice, that means you can connect to the vehicle's HV battery management system, pull live voltage and temperature data from each cell, and run an offline battery pack analysis without needing the car to be on a lift. One shop owner I spoke with said they used the offline mode to diagnose a sudden loss of range on a 2022 Model Y. By pulling the pack report, they identified a single cell that had drifted out of balance, replaced it, and avoided a costly full pack replacement. Another real-world scenario involves the 5-in-1 VCMI, Vehicle Communication Module interface. This isn't just a fancy way of saying it talks to more cars. It actually gives you access to proprietary communication protocols that most generic scanners can't crack. For a service tech, that translates to being able to reprogram the motor controller on a 2024 Rivian, or clear a motor torque error on a Porsche Taycan without sending the car back to the dealer. The result is a shorter turnaround time and a happier customer who sees the bill coming from the shop instead of a dealership markup. The scanner also boasts over 40 services and 3,000 active tests. In the field, that depth of testing shines when you're dealing with complex EV systems. For instance, a dealer in Ohio used the Ultra EV to run a motor true speed repair on a 2023 Nissan Ariya after the car complained of a jittery acceleration. The diagnostic session pinpointed a faulty inverter module, and the shop ordered the part that same day. Without the specific test, they would have spent hours chasing symptoms across multiple control units. But it isn't all smooth sailing. The first practical weakness is the learning curve. The interface is packed with menus, and while the touchscreen is responsive, you need to spend a few hours just navigating the service tree before you can run a test confidently. That's not a problem for a tech who lives with diagnostic software, but it can be frustrating for a newcomer who expects plug-and-play. Also, the hardware itself requires a stable power source. You can't run the full battery pack analysis on a single 12-volt battery. You'll need a dedicated power supply or a generator if you're working in a mobile setup. Another nuance is the reliance on software updates. Autel pushes updates regularly, which is great for keeping up with new EV models, but each update requires a decent internet connection and a few minutes of downtime. If you're in a rural shop with spotty Wi-Fi, you'll need to plan those updates for off hours. The updates themselves are free, but the necessity of staying current does add a small operational overhead. From a value perspective, the Ultra EV's price is justified when you think about the alternative costs. A dealer typically charges $300, $500 just to read a high-voltage fault, not